अस्सलाम वालेकुम बासित, क्या हाल है आपके?
Walaikum salam, Asad. I'm good. How are you?
I'm perfectly fine. कैसा जा रहा था आपका वीकेंड अब तक?
Well, quite resting, honestly. It has been a long week, so was just focused on resting. We have to restart from Monday, so that's why.
Awesome, awesome. So before we dive into the deep conversation, या जो हमारी real conversation है, I would quickly like to introduce कि आप like give you a very short introduction for the audience, for who are you as a person, from where did you start, and then we can like count on to your journey, like how did you get into design till now. Over to you.
Sure. Currently, I'm leading product design experience at ZAR. It's a fintech startup. Before that, I was working at Abu Dhabi Islamic Bank, and mostly I have spent my time at Sadapay as a head of product design, approximately 4 years. And I was the first product designer over there at Sadapay, and spent and started my journey from scratch, from zero. And it was just barely an idea at that time. And I'm immensely proud that what the team achieved right now. There's a product, it's running, millions of users working, and we are using it day by day. But that's been said. It's been, I think, 6 or 7 plus years in fintech space for me. And before that, I was just a developer, a small scale developer, I would say, because I graduated from IT, and that's what you're taught at that time. You're not taught design usually, so there was no exposure to design. But however, when I got into building products with my code, I started to have so many questions. Why is certain thing in this way? Why is this a certain thing in that way? And I usually got shut up calls from PMs or other people
Oh
because
shit.
it's not usually at that time, like back in 7 8 years, it wasn't a kind of a norm or culture where developers used to ask questions. It was just like you need to code and you need to get things done. And that was the critical pivoting moment for me, that I decided that no, this place is not for me. I mean, if something that is not clear in my head and I don't have clarity in my head, I can't work on it. I need to know why is this being built, where is this going to be used, and how is this going to be even used? Because I strongly believe in cultures, and because of that, I feel if even if you move from one place to another place, you will feel from food to design to roads to every single thing, culture changes, and culture has very high influence. And that's how I believe design should also be culturally focused, and that exactly user based design. Simply as that, if I put it. So that's how I actually got into design. And honestly speaking, I didn't even know first few alphabets of design at that time when I got my first job. So I just knew how to use basics of Photoshop and Illustrator, and I started with Sketch, I believe, and then switched to Figma, and now we are here.
Awesome, awesome. So you talked about cultures, right? And this is what fascinates me about that. When we talk about cultures, right? So how does cultures of workplace of homes affect a designer to actually solve problems?
Sorry, come again.
I said you talked about cultures, right? But it was more of a like culture for everything. I'm more interested in culture of the workplace. Like how does workplace culture help designer to actually solve problem effectively?
To me, I'm just going to speak for myself first, and probably then only I can relate to other designers. For me, I think it affects a lot, a lot. When I switched from Pakistan to UAE at Abu Dhabi Islamic Bank, the culture was completely changed for me. I was so used to the remote job, and over here I had to wake up at 6 and go to the office at 7:30 or 8, and then spend my time, and then come back at 5. And I was like, I felt like I was being forced to do something, and maybe it's just like in me, and I'm not relating that with everyone because I was so used with the remote job. But however, that taught me a few things, that culture basically, especially the workspace culture, plays a very important role when you're designing stuff. You need to have that flexibility. You need to have a good freedom, a good room, especially I got that again. Speaking of Ateep, I got a lot of freedom over there. My leadership was quite supportive of it. However, I was honestly skeptical that if I'm going to get any freedom in a cooperative sort of job, but it was a surprise for me that the leadership was very supportive, and I got a lot of support for it, for being a very innovative in terms of thinking. If you have ideas, bring them in. We'll change it. We'll see if it works. If it works, good. If it doesn't work, sure. That's let's keep it away. And I believe being a designer, you especially you need that. And if you want to have good designs in the end, you need to give certain freedom to a designer. You have to leave them. It's not like you have to dictate them each and every single bit of it. If you start doing that, you're getting your product built according to you, not according to your users.
Awesome. That answers the question. So, talking of the freedom, right? And we being designers and creative people, of course, crave for freedom, right? But do you think the actual design and actual problem solving skills come from the constraints, right? So, specifically in most startups, there are a lot of constraints, and that's where we see some great products that came out of it. So, do you think constraints are also important for the designers to actually perform better?
That's actually a good question. Having constraints allow you to put your focus at a specific point, but that doesn't mean it's stopping you to think in a free manner. So, for example, if you want to achieve or go from point A to point B, you know that you have to be at point B and you have to be in certain deadlines or certain scenarios. That's it. But that is not exactly stopping you to think creatively or think in freedom. So, I would still say give your designer some freedom, give your designer some leverage, and give your designer some ownership as well. And once you give that, I'm pretty sure you will be happy with what they come up with. It's difficult for even for the leadership to adapt that if they're used to with PRDs and whatnot, and it's also difficult with the designer as well if he is used to the other sort of workspace culture. But still, it's a good thing to try out because there are a lot of examples where things were built in garage where there was no one to actually lead or basically stop them and have them in a certain boundaries. So yeah, freedom is good to have, especially being a designer.
Awesome, awesome. So, speaking of the freedom and speaking of creating great products, so there are two school of thoughts of designers, right? There are one which focus too much on the details, which is I think important for everybody, but still, they are so focused on the pixels that somewhere usability or somewhere getting ship getting things done actually gets a bit slower, right? And they are focusing on too much on maybe the visual side of it. And there are other school of thoughts of designers who are actually trying to get the quantity out and see if that connects with the audience or not. And then they put the visuals on the secondary side of it, that they can improve the visuals according to if they see the product market fit. So which one do you support, or which one do you think you are?
So just to rephrase your question, one is basically bringing the designs into towards perfection and then delivering them to developers, and the other one is where you iterate quickly and learn accordingly, and then you improve your designs and the development part as well, right?
Bingo. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
I think I would simply say that both are correct. It's not one is wrong and the other one is not. It all depends on the scenario or the case in which you are right now. For example, if it's a product which is already built, it's running users are using it daily. And just for an example, Wise, Revolut, or any other big fintech which they have a lot of users and they're it's being used daily. So what you can simply learn over there is that you don't have so much room of iterations. You need to push out something that is so good in terms of usability that the users doesn't say, oh man, this is not Revolut quality. They have some expectations as well, right? That if you have some sort of reputation already built in the market, you need to release something to an extent where you might call it as an MLP. That okay, this is a minimum lovable product, and we want to keep our reputation intact. We don't want the users feel like, oh, this feels out of place. This feels not Revolut quality. That's where design systems are also important. That's where they basically speed up processes and starts to allow you to iterate quickly. So I'm not against iterating. I'm a big fan of iterations, but I'm also a big fan of MLPs, not MVP, because I strongly believe in this thing that a lot of times users don't exactly know what they want. So if you release something innovative, you test with them out and you allow them to use it, and you once you monitor their behaviors and data analytics, then only you will know that what is exactly working and what is not working. So you can't just simply say that, okay, let me bring a focus group. I'm going to give them a Figma prototype and I will test around it and I will see how it happens. I mean, sometimes it gives you good insights, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you just have to launch it and learn through real-time data so that you can iterate quickly. Again, quick iteration does not mean that you break visuals. You don't basically release good designs or good visuals. It definitely doesn't mean that.
Awesome. So you spoke design system. So you spoke about design system to actually ship things faster in a way that they also look decent, but it will like reduce a lot of your time. So when do you think a company or an organization or a team needs a design system? Because again, that's a separate cost at a very start, right? Eventually, you bring in the design system and save the future time that you will spend on these kind of stuff, but
For
overall,
sure.
when do you think like now is the right time for a team to have a design system?
Um, I think there are two questions over here. One, when do you think you should start building your own design system? The other one is, when do you think you can start using a design system? Using a design system can also mean you just use existing design system, right? It's just get a material design or Apple human interface guidelines and that's it, and just start using it. It can also speed up your process, but it definitely restricts you with a lot of it definitely restricts you with a lot of innovation and creativity. So it doesn't give you that much freedom of visual, I would, if I specify. However, if you don't believe that, oh yeah, I am not looking to use those sort of visuals, I will have my own brand, and this is my theme, this is my colors, I would just recommend you just start designing stuff, get it to a place where you start to get some response from the users, and you're sure about your product now, and you have already started attracting some numbers as well. That is the time where you can start thinking about design system. I mean, one of the examples that if I can give you at Sadapay, we did not start with a design system. We started design system when our team grew to into so much numbers that when I had multiple squads to manage, it became so complex and so difficult for me to keep everything consistent. And at that time, we decided, oh yeah, okay, this is the right time to build a design system, not in just design side, also in the development side, so that we can reuse stuff. We can just simply stop ourselves thinking on basic stuff like how would my button thing? Sorry, how would my button look like, or my list look like, or what will be the borders, blah blah. These are some basic decisions that you just can get done in the design system, and you can completely focus on problem solving, and so that you give more value towards your users. But then it doesn't mean that design system restricts your creative thinking. So it definitely doesn't. So but it just gives you some sort of principles, rules that you need to have somewhere, like a basic rules. Okay, we are not never going to think about this again because it's working for us, it's fine, we tested it out, that's it. Now we're more focused on giving value towards users and for solving real problems.
Awesome. So since you were managing, and it's been like a long time that you've been in the position where you are managing people, right? So tell me, what are the challenges of managing the people, especially when you are working in remote? So tell me, like the goods and the bads of being a manager at a remote setting.
Think it's a quite a complex sort of question. It's also subjective as well, because the problems that I have faced probably aren't going to be the same for other people. So I think one of the biggest problem being in a remote place when you're managing people is you don't see them, they're not in front of you, so you don't understand their physical language, you don't understand their body language, and you don't understand basically are they how they are uh, how they're basically putting things out in front of you. one of the example is that humans are basically unpredictable. That's for sure, and they're very different as well. And you need to treat every other human with respect, and with also with a lot of care when you're at a position where if you say something that might hurt or that might make someone's life, so that where you need to really think about whatever you're saying. So it becomes very difficult in a remote job that you don't understand if that person is in a serious mood or in a humorous mood or what. You don't understand their body language, so that becomes really difficult. So the other thing, I think in a remote job that actually helps is that I feel like it's you just avoid unnecessary and extra conversations that we usually have in offices. I'm not against it, but it just feels like you can actually have more. It just saves your time simply. I only get in calls or huddles where there is a need. So if someone needs my hand, if there is a place where I am in need, I will call someone, okay, and I will just consume their time at that time, not for just go in and barge into an office, stand in front of someone, and just you know I don't know how to put in some nicer words, but that's the culture that I have been through in some offices.
Got that. Yeah. Interesting. Good. So do you like vibe code? What do you think about vibe coding? Because that's stuff that is being getting very popular in these days, right? So in fintech space, do you think vibe coding are getting that praise where it is relatable to other industries? In, for example, in AI industries or the SaaS industries, it's very popular. But what
It's
is,
slow.
yeah.
It is
So yeah. So what about? Oh, sorry. So what about in fintech space? Like, how does it performing there?
It is slow, but it doesn't definitely means that people aren't doing. For example, especially in terms of security, a lot of established banks and a lot of established companies that don't allow you to use it. One of the example is again Adeep, where I was working. We didn't used to have a lot of access to AI. We didn't have a lot of access to uploading and downloading random stuff because of security, and
Of
it
course.
makes sense because they're dealing with millions and billions of numbers
Yeah.
in daily transactions. So, but in a startup where I'm working right now, we are trying our best, whatever, wherever AI can help us, just follow that. I mean, we need to be fast, we need to be agile, and we need to release something to the users quickly. So whatever, again, whatever is AI is going to help us with, we are trying to use that. And that doesn't mean that we are not taking care of security. Security is a big part of our integrity and brand. But what we are trying to do is giving leverage and giving freedom to developers and designers and everyone that, hey, wherever you feel like this thing can help you out and this thing can actually make a difference in your life, sure, you can use that.
Awesome. So, speaking of AI being helping to the designers, so being a designer, or being a creative person, or being a human being, we have certain type of hobbies, right? Some designers have the hobby of running. Some of them have the hobby of traveling, like you. I've been seeing you like you travel a lot. Some of them have the hobby of like playing any kind of sports or going to gym or anything like that. So tell me, how does a hobby helps a designer? For example, you've been like traveling around the world, right? So how does traveling help you come up with the ideas and inspirations and stuff like that?
I believe it uh, gives you a lot of exposure, and exposure leads you towards ideas, experiences. And I strongly believe this, every designer has a taste, and that taste comes with their experience. And so that's why usually companies try to hire people from good companies that they love their visual taste, right? So for me, I started traveling back in university, and at that time, I started to get some exposure that, oh, whoa, the world is bigger than what's in my room actually.
Yeah.
So, and that's a very unique sort of perspective for a person who has lived usually his life in front of a screen, in front of a laptop. And once you move out, then only you feel like, oh yeah, okay, there's a world which is different. There are things that are innovative. There are things that are built different, and there are cases, there are use cases, there are views that are built different, and in the end of the day, humans are using it. And if it works over there, why doesn't why doesn't or why won't it work over here? Joining Sadapay was one of that example. So I was working for Venture Dive at that time, and I was specifically working for Expense. And I used to think that Expense was a neobank, is a neobank. And I used to think that why isn't there a sort of a digital wallet or a neobank in Pakistan? What is exactly stopping us? I mean, there is a huge percentage of people using smartphones and they have internet access and they also have money that deal with transactions. Then why isn't someone able to crack this angle? And I just started searching on Google, and at that time there were only two digital apps, I believe, EasyPass and JazzCash. And and that time I started to get some, because of my search, because of that algorithm, search algorithm, I started to get Sadapay ads on my Facebook. And brand was basically testing some ads at that time. That the app was in no way done. There wasn't even designs at that time. He was just testing some ads, and to see that how is the response of the community. And I started searching about that ad, and I got to know about Brandon, and here we are today, actually. So and then I also have been a very keen observer and very pushy sort of a person, that I push people that move out of your position and just go and travel for once. You just need to pack your bag and then just travel once. Recently as well, I pushed my one of my teammate, and when he traveled once, now he's on every other month he is somewhere else. And that actually haunts me back. But anyhow, that's a scenario. So, but however, there are so many different things happening in the different part of the world that we as Pakistanis we don't exactly know, and we have never experienced. And for example, in Indonesia, it's a huge country with a lot of population, and it's in a lot of inflation as well. If you use their tech, if you use their fintech specifically, it's quite different from Pakistan. And if you one few of examples are Gojek and Grab. I mean, their delivery they started with a delivery sort of platform. Now there are super apps, and the way they allow you to access to your money, it's completely insane. They have marts where they have their merchants over there. You can go to them. You can just deposit some money with that you have in hand, and they will give you a serial code. You just scan it, and the money will be in your app. I mean, it's so innovative. Honestly, I have never seen in Pakistan. Why do we not have these things? Isn't it helpful? Sure, it's helpful in a lot of scenarios. But then again, I think that's where culture differences also comes in, and sort of things that we have in play in our country.
I sort of agree with you on this because again, having no exposure at all keeps us where we are right now. Even if there are, I mean, simplest of things that are happening around the world, but again, since we haven't seen it, so we don't believe it, right? So yeah, makes sense. So since you are like the big player in the fintech industry, so what are like your go-to products that you use for fintech?
I love Wise. I mean, I'm a big fan of Wise, not just because of its design or functionality. The turning point for me using Wise on my like one of the go-to product was basically I faced some issues with the account, and it was quite critical issues with my account. My account was about to get suspended with a lot of money in it, and the way they handled their support, the way they handled my case, the way they gave me responses, the way they dealt everything, that actually teaches you design is not just visual. Design is above and beyond than visuals. The experience, especially, it's not just what you are using, it's also what is surrounding you. It's also that Mezan Bank's ATM, when you enter, there is a very nice fragrance around in room, right? It's that sort of environment that you know that you're in the Mezan Bank's ATM. Is the experience is not just limited to design. And I want to actually emphasize on this to everyone that start thinking above and beyond than your pixels. That's where the real experience is built.
Awesome, awesome. So before we like wrap this up, I would quickly have you to give an advice to the designers who are starting out, like what they need to think before coming to the design, and then I would love you to have a piece of word for people who are actually in the industry but looking for work, and they are not potentially employed but they are looking for work. So do you have a piece of advice for them?
So two questions, right? One, general advice to everyone who is starting their career, and the second one, who is looking for a job. That right. So, person who is looking to start their career in design, I would say, don't just start thinking with pixels and scratch from scratch, because you are living in 21st century where AI is ruling the world approximately, right? And there is a reason for that. And when you say that there is a reason for that, it means that everything's out there approximately which you're thinking that can be built. So don't just reinvent the wheel. Try to do the competitor analysis as in detail as you can, and question why someone did in this way and why it worked for them. That's where you will land real clarity, and that's where your real design will begin. Because if you just start from zero, nobody likes to waste their time on things which are already invented, right? And I expect even from juniors right nowadays that they would know basics very well, because design is already out there. When we started design in Pakistan, like my career, I literally knew nothing, and the word UX wasn't even so popular at that time. It was just called a designer, UI UX designer, just a graphic designer. I still remember we used to give slices of our UI web UI in Photoshop, and we used to build graphics and all that on Photoshop. And some companies were called web designers, some companies were called graphic designers, some UI UX designers. But nowadays, every other person is available on the internet to guide you. ADP List is one of the biggest platform out there. You can start using it, and I would expect you to have a good amount of arsenal in your pocket that you can actually use, especially for the design basics. The second one, for the hiring guys, I think nothing comes easy. You have to put an effort, because if you are a designer or a developer, no matter how good you are, you're going to compete with other millions of designers and developers. You need to think what sets you apart. Why would someone hire you exactly? You need to ask very difficult questions from your own self. And I had to do this when I was jobless. I had to do this when I was laid off. I had to do this when I was applying to hundreds of companies when I didn't have a job. So, and that's where you basically create differentiation moment for yourself compared to other designers, and you will clearly get a good reflection of yourself, that who you are basically, and you need to understand that. And once you understand that, understand one thing again, that nothing comes easy. You have to apply in hundreds and hundreds of company, and don't lose your hope. You will get lots of rejections, but out there someone definitely needs you, and you're the right person for it. And one last, I would say it's just a note, but usually people reject you, but that doesn't mean that you're not a good designer. Maybe you're a really, really good designer, and you're a great designer as well. But if someone has rejected you, probably that means that they're not in need of your type of designers. And that also happens sometimes. So don't lose your hope. Don't think that you are not qualified and you are not the right person. Maybe you're not the right person for that company, and maybe you're the right person for something else. So, like for me, nothing other than fintech worked exactly, because my passion always lied in fintech. And even I tried a lot of other applications, but I wasn't that successful compared to fintech, because that's where my passion lied.
Awesome. So that is some great piece of advice, honestly. And before we end this, do you have any questions for me?
Nope, I think it's a great initiative to get some words out. One of the, I think, biggest difference I see in our culture is that if you see an Indian, if you see an Egyptian, or if you see any other communities, usually European communities, they're very quite supportive of their own community. But in Pakistan, it's not like that. We don't get the spotlight. Secondly, not everyone knows that there is immense sort of talent in Pakistan. Thirdly, we don't have a lot of support. And yeah.
Yeah, so that's the goal of honestly initiating this podcast, because I know the unsung heroes of designers, a lot of them, and I'm currently discovering the new heroes as this progresses. So I really hope like I try to bring people up front that these are the guys you should look for when it comes to actually doing a job or learning from them. So it's just that transferring knowledge from people that who knows and to the people who needs it. So I mean that's the goal of the podcast. And thank you so much, Basit, for taking your time out. I really wish you all the best for the Czar, the product that is coming out this month. And thank you so much, man, for coming.
Thank you so much, and do have an eye over there, up there. So for Czar, and try it out. Let me know how you feel it.
Awesome. I'll definitely try it out and let you know what my feedback is. So, I mean, thank you so much.